recording.
Thank you.
We don't have.
Well,
Oh,
um,
I now call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the town of Pierson on Tuesday, July 16th at 6 p.m. is now convened. At this time, if our town clerk will please call the roll.
Chairman Paul Martell.
Yes, ma'am?
Vice Chairman Mr. Blair Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Jonathan Vickers.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Herron.
here,
Commissioner Pastor Max Tyus.
I'm here.
Town Planner Mark Brett.
Here.
All right.
Good. At this time, I would ask Max if he would give the invocation, please.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this this board right here, and I just ask that you would bless their families for the for all of the challenges that we all face today. I just ask that your encouragement and your blessing would be upon all of us, and thank you for our town council. Pray that you'll bless them. Thank you for the rain today, and we thank you for government. It's kind of odd to think that way and say that, but you established it. So we ask that you would help us to make things better for the people. And we ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please rise, face the flag on your left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. Do we have a meeting last month?
Yep, you should have the
Oh, yeah.
minutes in there. And you should have the minutes from that missing meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm just making sure I wasn't, never mind. Council, have you had the opportunity to go over the minutes? Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, seeing none, the chair will recognize a motion to be accepted.
Move to accept as posted.
The vice chair has moved to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Jonathan seconds the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. At this time, Mark, take it over.
Just a clarification.
Oh.
We approved both sets. Correct?
Last meeting, you requested the minutes from last year, so they're in the packet as well.
Oh, okie dokie. Gotcha. If the council so agrees, we will make that motion as both sets. In agreement?
Yes.
So be it. Thank you for straightening me out, Max. Appreciate it. God knows I need help. All right, Mark, take it over.
Okay, so we have two items on tonight's agenda. They're both for the same piece of property. I'm gonna talk about them together, but you will need to make a motion, a decision separately on each one, as is, our custom and requirement. So the first item is a small-scale comp plan amendment. The second item is rezoning. The small-scale comp plan amendment, in both these instances, you're making a recommendation to the town council. The small-scale comp plan amendment, assuming you guys will make a recommendation either for approval or not, like it goes to the council. If they decide to approve it on first reading, it will go to the Growth Management Commission. The Volusia County Growth Management Commission, it then gets certified and comes back, and then they can second read. And so that's the process going forward. And that at that point the property is rezoned. So the request is for a small-scale comp plan amendment from medium density residential and conservation to medium-density mobile home, and the rezoning is from R3 and conservation to MH2. MH2 is medium-density mixed residential, so mixed residential allows not only single-family homes, modular homes, but also allows mobile homes, and that's the purpose of this request. The applicant wants to put a mobile home on this property. When he, assuming the rezoning goes through, when he gets done, at some point in the future, if he wanted to do something other than a mobile home, he could do so. He could do a site-built home or a modular home. But his current plans and preferences do a mobile home, and so that's why he's had to go through this rezoning process. The current zoning, which is medium-density mixed residential, allows the same number of units per acre, 3 units per acre. The mixed mobile home is 3 units per acre as well. So there's no difference in the number of units or density that's yielded. Really, the decision is about the type of use, right, which is mobile home. So I want to go through. First of all, I'm going to go through. I'm not going to read you the entire staff reports, but I'll kind of page through the maps and talk about them. Both these documents are part of the record and can be relied on as part of your decision making. And if you have any questions about anything that I don't cover, please ask me. So I want to go first, but I'm going to go through the maps, because it's the easy way to kind of walk through what's written in the staff report. So first two are aerial location maps, and you can see this property. It's addressed as 160 West Hagram. Its property has not yet been built on. It's a vacant piece of property, formerly wooded, and you can see here it is on West Hagram, kind of almost mid-block between County Road 3 and the railroad. Next page, a little closer in view, you will see that the applicant has cleared the property. Typically, you're supposed to wait till you get a building permit to do so. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. I mean, it will be addressed at building permit time. You have to have 1 tree per 2,500 square feet of lot area. This lot does not have that at this point in time, so that will be addressed at building permit. All right, so 25. It's about 17 trees per acre. This lot's not an acre, so just do the math. It's probably
About 8 trees, 8, 9 trees.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
barely, it's not even a half acre,
Yeah.
is it?
That parcel
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
rest around it.
Okay.
So-
Yes, that-
when he comes in for a plot plan, they'll show me, building permit. With the building permit, there's a plot plan that comes in, so they show me where the house, the driveway, septic tank. He'll also have to show me where his replacement trees are going. Okay. So existing flume map. So this shows the property having, and this is the existing, so it's the medium density residential, and you can see the conservation as well. So there's a split between the medium density and the conservation. This is next map, existing zoning. You can see R3 again, the split. But you can see he's proposing a flume map that covers the entire property with medium density and medium density mobile home and MH2 zoning. Not next map, not in the floodplain, so we're in the this is 500-year floodplain. Soils map appears generally pretty good. So, good, well draining soil. But you can see the little back half, you can see sort of a break between the blue and 32 and 34. So the 34, the soils aren't quite as good, and that's part of what happened with the conservation. You may have noticed some discussion in the staff report that talked about how that conservation got set on property. City worked with the county back when comp plans first came in. Most of that work was done. 1985, the act came in. By the time everybody was adopting their comp plans, it was later that decade, 1990s. So very late 80s, they looked at aerials, looked at soil maps. They didn't go out and ground truth the entire town. They just went by these soils map and the aerials and kind of made those lines and decisions based on that. This is showing you, next map kind of shows you what the cover of the property is prior to being cleared. It's called a mesic flatwood, which is basically just pine flatwoods, pines, saw palmetto, but primarily dominated by pines. See, it's current land use cover. But I want to call your attention to this memorandum. I mean, normally, without this kind of information, my normal recommendation would be to rezone that portion that is not in conservation. As I indicated in the beginning, this is going to go out to the Volusia Growth Management Commission. Volusia Growth Management Commission typically only addresses issues if a neighboring jurisdiction is going to object. That's basically the purpose of the Volusia Growth Management Commission. It's to look at intergovernmental issues related to comp plan changes. So really the only surrounding jurisdiction that we have to worry about is the county, because we're not touching any other jurisdictions. Normally the county only objects based on environmental issues. Sure. So my normal recommendation would be to just not touch the conservation, normally because we don't have any data. In this particular case, the applicant's lucky to the extent that prior to him even getting involved in, I think prior to ownership of the property, back in 2017, we did analysis of all of Flanico Estate. We were asked to do that by the town council. And it was just because there are a lot of people have bought lots in Flanico. There are no roads there. A lot of those roads get sold on the internet. There's a bunch of wetlands in Flanico, and so we, meaning myself and Yvonne, deal with Flanico Estates quite often. Most people end up buying in there, again, have seen some sort of inexpensive lots on the internet, and they're usually interior lots. They don't have road access, and it turns out it's either very difficult for them to build, or we tell them, well, you got to go get some sort of, you're in the middle of conservation, so you're going to have to go have some ground truth of your property done. But we were asked to do some analysis of this, basically to kind of forestall some of this. And I think the council at the time was hoping, that, much of what was in conservation, would not prove to be wet. And so it actually kind of turned out to be kind of a mixed story. There are some areas that are designated conservation that probably are not worthy of that designation. And so I'm going to direct your attention to the very last map. And so the applicant's property happens to fall, if you recall, it's not highlighted on here because this map was not prepared for the applicant's property. It would looked at all of Flamenco Estate. But if you look at the map that's in front of you, the applicant's property actually falls in this area that is down above map E. And that just happens to be fortunate. That's an area of uplands and it's, not wet. So I'm comfortable with their request to, take the conservation, future land use, and the conservation zoning off of it. So recommending approval of both the future land use map amendment and the rezoning. Kind of gone through the rezoning maps. I'm not going to go through each of the maps rezoning, they're kind of duplicates. I'll just point out that there is written criteria in the staff report related to the rezoning that goes through each of the criteria in the landowner code. I did that for you in writing, found that they met that criteria. So recommending approval on both the future land use map amendment and the rezoning. Be happy to answer any of your questions.
Commissioners,
May
You
I,
have a question?
may I start?
please
And it's
do.
not negative, I just have some general just interest here.
Yeah.
The, so, Mark, as I'm looking at the map here, and I see
You're looking at the Flamenco.
the Finico, yes.
The last one.
And I'm seeing the parcels there. Who owns what looks like it could at some point be platted roads through there? Who owns that property?
The town of Pierson.
The town of Pierson does. Now, here's my other question. With being conservation, is there any possibility in the future that that ground could be developed if roads were put through? Or could roads never be put through due to the conservation element?
I mean, roads could be put through because you can permit, obviously there's areas here that are not wetlands and you could permit impacts to the wetlands, if the town, the problem with this is, and where we get into situations where people always come in, just because those roads have been dedicated to the public, doesn't mean the public has to, spend money,
Correct.
put in the roads
Right.
so that you can build.
Right.
Typically, what happens in most communities, if you come in and you have one of these interior lots, you'd be given the opportunity if you wanted to, extend the road. So these are very small lots,
Right.
originally platted in the 1920s. It doesn't normally make sense for any individual.
Right.
I mean, the town could go in and assess, all these lots. The problem with that is, some of these lots have been owned from people for a very long time. They're not on the tax roll for very much money. If you were to assess them enough of the roads, they probably, many of these landowners wouldn't pay the assessment,
Sure.
probably. So it just creates a very difficult situation where, we've had situations where people have have purchased lots that, weren't buildable, and they paid $20,000 for them.
Right.
They weren't worth it.
Right.
So, but in terms of conservation, what happens is, even if somebody has conservation, you need to have 1 unit per 20 acres to build. So if you have conservation, you have 20 acres, you can build, by right,
Sure.
single family home. Now what happens if you have a small lot like this? Well, there's language in our landowner code that says if your lot's been platted, prior to there's a date, February, I don't want to quote the exact date. It's
Sure.
February 1994. If your lot is platted prior to February 1994, when the landowner code was created, and and you don't meet the minimum lot size criteria, you can still build. So some of these smaller lots could, in conservation, could still build.
Okay.
You know, they'd still be required to go out and, you know, ground, you know, particularly if they were in an area that, you know, on this map that still showed up as A, you know, we wouldn't, city doesn't go out and do the assessment. You'd have to basically go out and kind of quantify your own impacts, and you could probably get permits to at least put a home on it, get a driveway on it, so that it's private property. It's not, you know, you can't make it totally unusable.
Sure.
But there would be an expensive process to go
Right.
through. So, you know, what happens with these people by the time, you know, they hear, you know, got to put in a road, you know, or approach the town council and ask the town council to put in a road for you. That's an option. Town council could say yes. I don't know that they would.
I know you're right.
But people are given those two options, and then told also, by the way, you know, if you're in with one of these wet areas, you're gonna have to hire a biologist. A biologist is gonna have to tell us what the quality of those wetlands are. You're gonna have to deal with permitting, not only through the town, but through St. John's. So by the time they've done that, you know, they're pretty discouraged,
So theoretically, if the right land developer got hold of this could be a neighborhood.
if somebody wanted to consolidate property, yeah, it
Okay.
could. You know, it's probably not worth it, but yes, it can be done.
Right. Typical.
Typically what happens is, you know, we see people, like the applicant, they're buying something on the edge. They've learned, you know, that it's not wet, you know, and they've come in. So,
Commissioners,
Thank you. That's all I have. That's all I have.
Jonathan,
That's all I have for right now.
Jim,
I don't have anything.
Max? The only question I have is, I heard what you said, but this won't come back and open a Pandora's box. Would it? Because it's partial.
Pandora box
uncons-
of what? I mean, what's your question?
Well, the whole point is, I don't want to, it come back in the future and somebody else has a similar property, but it has more of the conservation in his or hers plot. And they say, well, you passed it for somebody, why
Well-
won't you pass it to me?
Well, no, I don't think it's gonna open a Pandora's box now, because I thought, if you're asking just, you know, I mean, my recommendation is based on the fact that this is uplands, that we understood that the conservation line, how it was derived, and, you know, it's not, you know, it didn't come down from on high. It literally was people looking at, you know, they did the best, they did pretty good, actually, when you actually look at what's designated conservation. Most of the conservation areas do contain wetlands, but we do see at the edges, because like I said, they were using, you know, 1980 aerials. I don't know if you ever looked at Google Earth, but if you go back, you know, they have a little timestamp thing, and you can go back and look at past aerials, and so it's kind of interesting. You can look and see how something's developed, but as the aerials go back, they get fuzzier, so it's really hard to see features as you go further back in the past. And then they were, you know, looking at soils that, you know, said, you know, they were wet, or, you know, and you know, just because a soil, again, those soil samples were not, those themselves were sort of surveys, right? So just because, you know, they kind of have these contours on them themselves where they said, okay, these seem like poor soils, you know, they're not well draining, again, they not 100% survey. So the conservation lines are pretty good. The county, you know, have recognized it themselves. They have basically, we don't have in our land development code, but they administratively will move a line. There's a distance in their land development code. So based on the fact they figure out, oh, well, you know, the work that was done in the past, you know, wasn't that accurate, they'll move a line, the staff can move it 660 feet without it going to even their planning board, the PLDRC is what they call it, or the county council. because they knew there were gonna be some inaccuracies, so these lines are not, you know,
Okay, you answered my question, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
sure.
Let's go to the, next one. And
Well,
we'll call,
I mean, I talked about them both together, you guys
Oh,
have
that
to,
was
you guys
it?
have to, you should
Oh,
hear from the
okay.
applicant, if you have any questions of the applicant, and then the
I
public,
don't.
and then, you
no, I
know.
think it's okay, as long as, we got authorization and the memorandum.
Yeah, we just gotta, we just
So
gotta
it
vote.
It
to
covered all the
agree,
bases. You only had a couple of questions, you answered them. So,
Okay.
you wanna call
So,
the,
well, you do need to at least have an opportunity, obviously everything's all be positive, I'm sure the applicant doesn't have much to say, but you do need to hear, we have somebody from the public, there's been public notice, so you do have to,
Better than neighborhood.
I'm sorry?
We just want better than neighborhood.
yes.
Is there anybody, wanna say anything about this particular? I didn't think so, otherwise you'd be throwing stones at me. So
And
consequently,
I own like the 3 or 4 lots there, so I'm completely blocked in by the
Smart.
roadway, so
Smart.
I got that whole rectangle there, so,
you're good?
yes, sir.
And you're gonna plant trees, right?
Corman never mentioned that, but I absolutely will. I know a great tree guy right there in Seville.
Well, if you had left a certain number, you know,
Well, she never even
Yeah.
told me, so
Okay,
I would've,
okay.
I would've.
Okay.
It would've been no big deal.
Your chainsaw was working good. Max?
I do have a quick question.
Please.
Mark, this isn't a crass question, but if the, conservation is the last to pass the test, is there a reason we didn't start with them?
if the conservation is,
The process you said was for the town, and then it would, the county would
Yeah.
have to approve it. Did
Well,
I hear that right?
that's just how the process, right? This is a request for a comp plan amendment and rezoning. The comp plan amendment is the only one that goes on to the Volusia Grove Management Commission. So, you know, the request begins with the applicant, right? So, certainly, if the circumstances were different, like let's say this area was wet, or appeared to be wet, you know, my recommendation, and we had this in the past, I've recommended, well, change the portion of the property that's uplands, that, and leave the rest conservation, and that's normally what I would say, in either knowledge that it was wet, or in the absence of information that indicated it was upland, so, but it never you know, if we don't go forward, it never gets to the county, right? So it never goes to the Growth Management Commission. They may not even look at this. I don't, you know, basically what's gonna happen is,
Okay.
it's gonna go from you to the town council. Town council, it's gonna go to the Growth Management Commission. Growth Management Commission is gonna send that out to the county. The county may look at it, they may not look at it, you know? If they do look at it, there's obviously information in here that indicates, you know, why we've made our decision. But, I mean, it works the same way with, you know, we get copied on the county requests when they potentially affect us. And so those all get sent to me and I look at them. I haven't had any reason, you know, I mean, the only reason why I would object is if I thought there was something they were gonna do that was gonna impact Pierson, and it would be more of a land use issue. You know, the reason why I said the county only objects based on environmental, is that's just from experience. The only time they've ever questioned anything is because, you know, they thought it had some environmental impact, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Okay.
Okay, are there any more questions? Hearing none, seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, parcel 580201680070 on Hagstrom Road here in Pierson.
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the, future land use map, to change the, property discussed from medium density residential and conservation to medium density mobile home.
There is a motion on the floor by our vice chairman. It's been seconded by Jim.
Jeff.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I apologize, Jeff. I call a vote, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next. This is the same property, and I will entertain a motion on parcel 580201680070 for rezoning on Hagstrom Road.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the rezoning request for the property 580-201-680070, from R3 medium density single family residential and conservation to MH2 medium density mixed residential.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. At this time, I will call the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Is there anything else, Mark?
Nothing else, I don't.
Nothing else, okay.
Thank
You're free to go.
Hey,
You can fly like a bird. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
We
Congratulations, good luck with it.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, Chad, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
No, it's something totally different.
Yeah, yeah.
After the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, this will be done in a few minutes. Are there any questions?
I do not.
Max?
A while back, last year, we talked about some resource notebooks, that you mentioned that would be helpful to us.
It's on my
Okay.
notes. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions for anything? Okay.
Is that, I'm sorry, Max, are you referring, you referring to the comp plan binders?
Yes,
Do we have new printed ones?
that's,
We will have
question.
very shortly, I knew this would come up, so.
Hoping it did, but you.
No, I knew it was gonna come up, so, as a matter of fact, just yesterday, I got through the, if you recall, that comp plan amendment had a ton of, strike through and underlines, and so, my initial attempt was to have somebody in my office kind of go through it, but it turned out that the only person who could actually do it was me. Because was confusing. So I got through the whole thing. So by the end of this week, I'll have the document together. I will have it I'll have it to Ryan. He will get it up on the comp plan, and we'll then be able to publish it in paper form and get it to you guys.
Awesome.
so we're looking at a relatively short amount of time.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. One more question from the chair. Is there any further information outside of what was transpired at the last town council meeting on the sanitary system? Is there any updates, any kind of inspiring words you want to say? Or?
Well, just so everybody knows, the town council at their last meeting passed a memorandum of understanding between the town and the school board. The purpose of the MOU was to fix the location of the plant. If you recall, the original design was for the town to take over the, well, not design, the original concept, because we're actually working on the design. So the idea was that the town would take over the existing wastewater plant at the school site and build a new plant next to it, decommission that plant, and connect, build and construct a collection system throughout the town and connect it to that. The purpose of that, the reason for that approach is that was essentially how the water system was done, and so we're just modeling it on it. When we originally talked to school board staff about this, about 5 or 6 years ago now, they were, great, we don't want to be in the business, no problem with that. Well, down the road, about 5 or 6 years, staff has turned over twice since that, and school board staff took the position, no, we don't really like that idea. We want, not only do we want to be out of the business, but we want the plant totally off. So if you'd like us to be a customer, what you'll agree to do is construct the plant, on your own property. And, then we will connect to it and decommission. That's very important because they provide enough, the school itself provides enough waste flow to, help that plant operate, particularly in the initial phases. You need some, because you're gonna have a small number of customers, you need them to be fairly large consumers. The school would do that for us. So that's sort of the whole purpose of that MOU. And so that MOU basically says that the plant will get constructed on the north side of the runway. And ultimately the school will connect to it through a force main, and I can get into more details of the plan if you want to, but that's the action that was taken. So the next step is for the school board to approve that agreement, so that's what we're waiting for. Then Mead and Hunt will, continue with the process of
Sure.
designing everything, so that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I just wanna make sure that everybody knows that this is not dead, cause there was a time there, I thought it was dead. I really did, I was apprehensive. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Is there any further business to be brought before the council?
Couple questions.
Not council, commission.
Are the soils north of the runway conducive to drainage, for
Yes,
percolation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so soil borings were done. The school board wanted us to move location. Obviously, we couldn't agree to that without knowing that the soils were
Right.
good, so.
And the memorandum of understanding, is that basically saying, hey, if we commit to this, you will hook up to it to the school? Or can they come back and say, never mind?
The MOU is an agreement to have an agreement.
Okay.
Right? So it's not, and the reason why it was done this way, again, this was, we've been meeting with school board, talking to them about this probably for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted, in order to enter into a binding agreement, they wanted so much information that we would have had to design everything,
Sure.
and then they could
Make that
basically
call.
say no. So we wanted, because we obviously wanted their commitment before going forward, and basically to, have some understanding before spending that money. That's the reason for the MOU.
Sure.
And that way, it's, for example, they wanted, the MOU basically says, back up so you can understand this. South of Washington Street, there is a lift station that is being designed. Regardless of where the plant was going to be, whether it was going to be on the property or on the airport property, that was going to be the lift station.
Mm-hmm.
Because the collection, so the way it's a gravity system, so you flush your toilet, it goes down the drain, and it goes out into goes through your lateral and into a sanitary sewer collection line, right, which runs downhill to a lift station, right, and then from a lift station it gets pump to apply it in the simplest form. Sometimes you go from
Right.
lift station to lift station, but in the lift station's lowest point, and, you know, from there, it goes to, the plant.
Right.
And gets pumped as opposed to gravity, right? So the original plan was to have a direct, you know, short distance, because that force main is, you know, one of the most expensive things to construct. So you want it to be as short and straight as possible. So behind the school is a different route than behind the airport. So, you know, so obviously we're gonna move the plant, we're gonna have to have an easement in a different location than if it was, you know, kept behind the school. And so we got into the level of discussions, like they wanted us to do a survey to tell us where the new easement would be prior to agreeing to it. Well, you know, we don't wanna do a survey if you're not, you know, a
Right.
survey is expensive. You know,
Right.
So that was kind of the nature of the discussions, and kind of around those things, like, well, how can we agree to give you the 15 feet if we don't, you know, well, you're not agreeing to give us the 15 feet, you understand that you're gonna have to give us a lift station, you're gonna have to give us an easement so that we can run it, and, you know, we don't want to design it without at least an understanding that you're willing to give us 15 feet, we can get into the survey details, you know, so that was sort of the level of this discussion in the beginning, was like, you know, we want, you know,
I do
and that's
know.
why it took so long, because it was, you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I understand. I understand.
And you might know more than I, you know, from our perspective, we were dealing with people, I mean, they have wastewater plants, but they don't generally run them, they have people that do it for them, so,
Correct.
I mean, we had to get into a whole bunch of detail
Oh,
with
yeah.
them about
Yeah.
how all this works.
It's good training though.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I have had to learn. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about it, but I had to had to learn a whole lot more to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Mark. Are there any other questions? Comments, anything? No? You're okay, all right. Well, then at 6:41, I now adjourn our commission meeting. Thank you, Mark.